Hello, I am V. This came up in the earlier discussion about the scene where Shinji walks in on Rei after the shower and he puts on his father's old glasses. And this was a long tangent, so I thought I'd make it into another video. It's a really big aspect of the series that I don't think a lot of people get if you missed End of Eva, is that Shinji is in danger of becoming Gendo. That Gendo is a grown-up version of Shinji, if Shinji makes all the wrong choices. Now, you think that's weird because you haven't seen End of Eva. End of Eva is the real ending, and I can't believe some people skip it, but there's this idiotic article by Susan Napier, who's a professor and writes a lot of anime books, but she literally devoted one sentence to End of Eva, simply to say End of Eva is revenge on fans and should be skipped. And if you skip that, you'd think Gendo was this mustache-twirling villain, when in reality, he's a really, really flawed person. And does that turn him into a villain? There's no such thing as mustache-twirling villains. Like, my villains when I was growing up weren't like Power Rangers, Lord Zed, some guy with no skin cackling at me from the moon who I fight his monsters. My villains were like, I have problems with my dad, how do I address that? And they're human beings. Maybe all villains are just really flawed people, I don't know. But the real villain of Eva is Zele and Chairman Keel, and Gendo's this really gray character that he does bad things, but they kind of imply in the end that he wasn't as bad as Zele was, and he was actually trying to stop Zele, sort of. Not in the way Yui was, but there's a brief line where he just goes, nothing comes from death, Zele, you're a bunch of idiots, and he tries to make his own plan for instrumentality balls Yui. So he's not a nice person, he does bad things. But, well, let's see that scene right before he gets tangified in instrumentality in a special way by, I think it's symbolic of the vision of Eva 1 biting him, but his final lines are, when Shinji is near me, all I ever do is cause him pain. I thought it'd be better when I did nothing at all. I didn't believe anyone could love me, and I never deserved to be loved. And then these visions of Yui and Kaoru say, you were afraid of Shinji and you were running away just like he does, and you rejected everyone around you so you couldn't be hurt. And he was terrified of the invisible bond's people form, and he closed off his heart. His final line is, so this is my retribution. I mean, can you really call him this mustache-twirling, black hat villain when his final line is, please forgive me, Shinji? So really, if you look at the flashback episodes, you see how how Gendo used to be. Episode 21, The Birth of Nerve, because we only see Gendo at the end of his character arc, and that skews our perception of him. When you see this flashback episode to how he used to be, well, for starters, when we first see him when he's like in college age, when he doesn't have a beard, doesn't wear glasses, and he's younger, he looks like an older version of Shinji. Really clearly. And it's wacky, it's true. He looks like his father. His father was that age. But the point is, even then, Fuyutsuki picks him up because he got into a bar fight or something. He just says, oh, I'm used to hatred and people not liking me. And that really strikes me as, that thing really nerdy, Asperger's-y people do, where, yeah, the world is full of cruel people, but eventually you just start blaming it on the world, and that, oh, no one understands me. Like the way Shinji in End of Eva is going, you don't understand me, Sato, no one understands me, my life is so hard. The world is a scary place, and you have to deal with that. And the problem is, Shinji, at this point in his life, when you're a teenager, 14, there's a lot of problems they're facing. Everyone, Shinji in particular, you're at a fork in the road, where if Shinji makes all the wrong choices, and doesn't start connecting with people and learning to overcome his emotional problems, which aren't his fault. His father emotionally stunted him by abandoning him, but if he makes all the wrong choices because of all the problems in his life, he is going to get really bitter, blame the world, and turn into Gendo. Because Gendo, you get the impression, Gendo started out just like Shinji did and had the same problems Shinji did as a teenager when he was a teenager. But made all the wrong choices and turned into this bitter, crazy person. Well, he's not crazy. But the other thing they imply is, Yui always says, no, he's actually a really nice person in private, he's just got really rough edges. And at first you think she's being manipulated by Gendo. Fuyutsuki thinks she is. But then later on, when you see Gendo talking in private, and in Nevada, he says, "No, I really love Yui." Like, his whole character is driven by the need to get back with Yui. He didn't just marry her for convenience, maybe initially, but he really loved her. And the idea you get is Yui was this really nice person, and even though he was already on the road to becoming Gendo, this bitter person who didn't address all his problems, she treated him like a person with patience and kindness, and that let him turn back into a normal person for a while. When he was with her, he was actually this nice, kind person. If you think of, what if Shinji, put 14-year-old Shinji in 14-year-old Gendo's place, and think of Gendo as Shinji. Went through all these bad choices. Then he met Yui, and that's why he so desperately wants to get back with Yui, because he was like a normal person when Yui was around. And they imply that when Yui keeps saying, "No, he really is nice when I'm around." And there's this thing of, again, we only see him after he loses, and that's why he went so nuts when Yui was lost, because she was everything to him and made him a normal person. And after that, Naoko says, after Yui was lost, Gendo just turned into this different person. It just devastated him, and he turned into the Gendo we see starting in episode 1. So it's actually, we only see him after that change. Before that, we only see glimpses of what he used to be like, but after he met Yui, he turned back into a semi-regular person for a while. And if you think he doesn't care about Shinji, apart from his final lines that say no, he really does, there's like a scene in episode 20 where Shinji is remembering stuff from when he was in Yui's womb. And he's remembering this conversation that Gendo had with a pregnant Yui. And he says, "Oh dear God, second impact has happened. Will my son have to live through this kind of hell?" And Yui says, "No, he'll be alright. Anywhere can be a paradise as long as you have the will to live," which is really part of the message of the series and Yui's philosophy. But Gendo was worried about his wife and his son. He cared about Shinji when he was a toddler. Maybe, he foolishly believed in instrumentality. It's weird that he joined Zele, and you think he kind of believed in instrumentality for a while. Yui didn't. But then after Yui died, he turned on Zele too, but for the different reasons. But he kind of agreed. But the point is, Gendo didn't always hate Shinji, or not like him. He does care about him, or at least he did, but he's walled off all of his emotions, the way Shinji walls people off. And Gendo is this adult Shinji that made all the wrong choices. He was at that fork in the road. He made all the wrong choices and turned into this bitter person, and it's this stark warning to Shinji, this future ghost of the person he'll turn into if he keeps making all these bad choices and not connecting with people and just living in a fantasy of his headphones and stuff and tuning people out. And at the end, Shinji stands at that fork in the road. He's at instrumentality, and he is put in the position where we can choose whether we accept it or reject it. And Gendo in that position would have chosen, well, what he already did earlier in his life was he chose trying to connect with people, because instrumentality doesn't do that. Shinji stood at the fork in the road, and he made the right choice, which was to try to connect with other people, knowing that the world is full of pain, but that's what life is. And he made the right choice. But Gendo is really this scary future version of what Shinji is if he makes all the bad decisions in his life. Sort of like that scene from Empire Strikes Back where Luke has the vision of Darth Vader and he fights him and cuts off his mask only to see himself. And the Skywalker is on the path to, well, he could choose the right path and fight the Emperor, or he could fall into his father's path and join the Emperor and fall to the dark side. Well, in Eva, the dark side is rejecting other people, not trying to make connections with them because, no, I'm some nerdy kid who likes to watch anime and music, and it's better to just wall myself off from the world and say that, oh, people who don't like me are just mean and evil. That, no, the world is full of pain, but that's the price of joy. And Shinji has to learn that lesson. He makes the right choice that Gendo didn't. So Gendo really is this scary living vision of what Shinji will become if he keeps going on a path he's been going on of making all the wrong choices. Now, I'm running out of time for this video, so I will simply add that I'm pleased to meet you, and I hope you guess my name. What's puzzling you is the nature of my game.